Wednesday, July the 24th. Lake level is right at 916. It's dropped about 6 inches or so. It's about a foot over pool. It's still up there pretty good for this time of year. Water temperature is 82, 83 degrees in the morning, and it's warming up to 85, 86 on the main lake, and in the clearer water. Now up in the rivers, it's getting up into the high 80s. A lot hasn't changed down lake, so rather than to get into the stuff I've been talking about each week as far as the drop shot and the football jig, you can go back and look at last week's reports, but a lot of that's the same. There's still, a lot of top water bite around some of the deeper docks and the drop shot and everything once the sun gets up, and the football jig. But something we do, we don't talk a whole lot about is the upper rivers this time of year. When it gets really hot, the upper rivers can be some of the best fishing, even throughout the day, not just in the morning. And when I'm talking upper rivers, I'm talking like from Flat Creek, from the Flat Creek Bridge on up, and from Point 15 on up into the James. If I was to go up into the Kings River, I probably wouldn't even start till I got, within about a mile of the 86 Bridge, and then go from there on up. If I was up in the Long Creek area, it'd be from Cricket Creek or Yoakum Creek on up. And a lot of the places up there, there's not that much water. There's, 15, 18 foot in the channels. So it kind of makes some of the fishing a little easier. They're either on the flats or they're on the channels. And what I'll do is I'll go up in there, and one of the main things I'll look for is the bait. My three main baits are going to be a crankbait, a jig, and a buzzbait. And I'll start out, first thing with a buzzbait or maybe even a spook, but I like a buzzbait up there on them shallow flats to see with the lake a foot up. There's still a lot of stuff in the water up there. There's a lot of laydowns. There'll be laydowns coming down off the steeper banks, off the channel banks. And you don't need much water up there to hold the fish, especially up on them flats. If there's 3 foot of water, 3 or 4 foot of water around a log or stump, sometimes even less, you can catch them up there on them flats. And I usually always throw like a black or black and blue buzzbait. One of my favorite ones a guy makes here locally, it's called a Jigs Up. A guy named Bud Day makes them. But it's got a little rivet right on the shank of the bait. So I can rig it up to where I've either got a clacker or I don't. And what you got to do is just bend it in a little bit where it'll clack on the pop rivet. Sometimes you want a little bit more quiet approach, so I'll just bend the arm away where it's not clacking. And I usually use a 1/4 ounce or 3/8 ounce. Usually always use a trailer hook. And if the blades aren't black, I like to just take a Sharpie and paint them black, and I'll either use an all black or a black and blue. Another one will work good too is a War Eagle. It's got a good little 1/4 ounce buzzbait. What I like about the War Eagle one is kind of knurled right up here on the shaft where it makes a little squeak, which seems to attract some of the fish. But it doesn't have a clacker on it. Probably my all around favorite is this one that's made locally here. It's a Jigs Up. Your crankbaits. Now I'll throw a lot depending on how deep of the stuff I'm fishing. Like I say, you're going to find where there's a channel in the creeks, whether you're in the main river or in the creek arms, you're going to find little channels. And if they're up on the flats, if it's real shallow, I'll take a little 1.5, either like a Lucky Craft, an RC, or a Lucky Strike. And a lot of the colors I'll throw, I like this splatterback, which is a black and white. Chartreuse and black always works real well. These are some here. This is a Strike King 1.5. These the Robert Fall Creek Lures paints these, and you can get these at the Sportsman Factory Outlet, but Rob does an awesome job on his paint jobs. Crawdad patterns will work good up there. Here's one that he painted here, crawdad pattern. It depends. Some days it'll be like a crawdad pattern crankbait, other days it'll be a shad pattern. So I'll just kind of, mix it up on the bait, see which one they're liking. But what you want to try to key on is if you see the little schools of bait in little circles up on the flats, you want to just follow that shad around and crank it underneath them. And usually we're burning that crankbait pretty quick. If you get around any kind of cover, you want to hit it 3 or 4 different ways. you know, come over the top of it, over the sides, go around to the other side, you know, and you want to run that crankbait right into the wood, let it bounce off of it. You know, you will get them stuck every once in a while, but most of the time you can go in there and get them out. If they don't bite the crankbait on the same structure, I'll take a little 3/8 ounce jig, a pig sticker Snowden jig, same colors I throw down like on the football jig, a lot of green, pumpkin, purple. This is a triple X, and I'll use either a critter craw for a trailer or a zoom speed craw, you know, something in a green pumpkin or watermelon candy. And I'll just flip both sides of it. If it's got a lot of branches in it, I'll work it through the branches. If I don't get bit on the flats, I'll go to the channel side, kind of do the same thing. I'll parallel like the chunk rock where the channel is, and I'll either throw the 1.5 or I'll throw like a 2.5, and I'll use, you know, a lot of the same colors. You know, these will get down 3 to 5 feet, so if I want something getting down there a little bit deeper, bouncing off some of the rock and laydowns, I'll use a little bit bigger square bill, and pretty much the same colors that I was throwing on 1.5. Like I say, the good thing about it up there, the skinnier the water you get into, there's not a whole lot of places for the fish to go. They're either up on the flats or you've got to come up on the channel banks. And if they won't chase the crankbait, you usually just got to slow down with a jig or, you know, even a shaky head, and work every little piece of structure, whether it be wood or rock, work it real thoroughly. Try to key on the shade. If there's any kind of current, if they're generating electricity, which you can go to my website and go to lake levels, and it'll show an hourly update of what they're doing for electricity. And normally if there's any current, then you can just key on the back sides of the rocks, the stumps, any kind of standing timber. The fish are going to be on the downriver side, you know, where they can ambush things that's coming downstream. So it's just like fishing a river, you know, in a little bit more rapid water. But just think of the same thing, you know, where the fish are going to set up. They're going to use the shade. If they don't have any current, it's going to be mainly on the shaded side of the structure. If there is current, they're going to use the back side plus the shade. And I had a couple guys ask me about how I set my luge reels up as far as for pitching and flipping and casting. Now on my Speed Spool Tournament Pro and the regular Speed Spool, what I normally do is you pull the side plate off and you got 4 weights in there. For all my normal fishing, I do 2 in and 2 out. If you've got them pushed out, that's engaged. If you've got them popped in, that's disengaged. So I do 2 in and 2 out. Now if I'm flipping, I usually take all the weights off. And then I just set my, oops, sorry about that. I just set that just screws right back in there. This one here on your brake, you want to set it so that when it hits the water, the bait will stop, or the spool will stop spinning, and then give it about another 1/4 of a turn looser. And once you get that set, you pretty much don't have to adjust that, whether you're flipping or just regular casting. Then I'll set my dial here up on 10, and I'll start there. If I feel I can loosen it, I'll just loosen it depending on what size bait I'm throwing and what my wind conditions are. So you shouldn't have, once you get that set, you shouldn't have to touch it. Your inner weights, 2 in and 2 out for, you know, crankbait and spinnerbait and football jig, most everything that you're going to do. The only exception is when I'm flipping, I'll take all the inner weights off. The only thing you got to watch when you take all them inner weights off, the spool is going to be super free, so when you're pitching a jig or something back under a dock, it'll get back in there a lot further. But what you got to remember is you got them backed all the way off, so that if you go to make a cast with that reel, it's going to blow up on you big time if you don't have your thumb on it. So, you know, like I say, when you go back to fishing a regular bait with it, just pull the side plate off and pull 2 more, you know, engage 2 more of the weights, and you'll be fine. Till next week, good luck, good fishing.